All new personnel joining a vessel must undergo a safety induction by a responsible officer, which must, as a minimum, cover the requirements of the relevant parts of the STCW 95 Convention. This training should cover personal survival techniques, fire prevention and firefighting, elementary first aid, and personal safety and social responsibilities. It's recommended that each company should design and implement a standard induction program for each vessel, covering the STCW requirements and incorporating and expanding on any details specific to that vessel's particular needs. This module is intended to complement the onboard induction and gives guidance on the subjects to be covered. On completion of the standard safety induction, it's also recommended that new personnel receive departmental induction, covering safe working practices, areas of responsibility, departmental standing orders, and training or certification requirements to operate any specific machinery or undertake certain tasks. All new personnel should be given a clear explanation of the vessel's alarm signals and be given instruction on the emergency assembly stations, lifeboat stations, and your fire drill requirements. Smoking regulations on the vessel should be strictly observed. Safe and correct disposal of cigarette ends is essential, and no smoking notices should be strictly obeyed. Fire aboard a vessel can be disastrous. Common causes are overloading of electrical circuitry, careless disposal of cigarette ends, spontaneous combustion of dirty waste or rags, especially if they've been contaminated with oil, damp storage of linen, oil spillage or leakage in machinery spaces, galley fires due to overheating of cooking oils, carelessness with irons, failure to clean filters on tumble dryers, and incorrect methods of drying laundry. Personnel should be made aware of these risks and ensure that at all times, through good housekeeping, regular inspection and maintenance of electrical circuitry, that fire risks are removed where possible or kept to a minimum. All personnel should know the action to be taken in cases of accident or medical casualty on board ship. For example, they will at least need to know how to raise the alarm and seek assistance. It is the responsibility of individuals to ensure high standards of personal hygiene and to look after their own health. Attention should be paid to personal cleanliness, sensible diet, adequate sleep during rest periods, regular exercise, avoidance of excess alcohol or tobacco, prompt attention to cuts and abrasions, maintenance of working clothes and protective equipment in a clean condition, avoidance of recreational drugs. On international voyages, any vaccinations or inoculations required should be fully updated. Medications for the prevention of illness, such as anti-malarial tablets, should be taken as and when required. In hot climates, it's important to protect skin from strong sunlight and drink plenty of salt-containing liquids or take salt tablets to replace body fluids lost through perspiration. All ships move in a seaway, and as space is very limited aboard any vessel, good housekeeping is essential. Attention should be paid in particular to the following areas: safe and secure stowage of loose items, proper securing of doors, good maintenance of fittings and fixtures, adequate illumination of all work areas, avoidance of overloading of electrical circuits, especially in cabins, clear and legible signs and notices, proper clearance and disposal of garbage or waste materials, handling and storage of garbage can present health and safety hazards to crews and ships. Requirements of the garbage management plan should be observed. Particular attention should be paid to the correct methods of disposal of waste oils, chemicals, galley waste, garbage, and other redundant items, such as old mooring lines. To recap on the garbage disposal regulations. Plastics. Dumping is prohibited at all times. Floating dunnage, such as lining and packing materials, disposal permitted when more than 25 miles offshore. Paper, rags, glass, metal, bottles and food waste, disposal permitted when more than 12 miles offshore. Garbage that has been ground such that it would pass through a mesh no larger than 25 millimeters, disposal permitted when more than 3 miles offshore. Disposal of any garbage is not permitted in special areas, except for food waste, which can be disposed of more than 12 miles offshore in a special area. To recap, the special areas are the Mediterranean Sea area, the Baltic Sea area, the Black Sea area, the Red Sea area, the Gulfs area, the North Sea area, the Antarctic area, and the wider Caribbean region, including the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea. All new personnel should be made aware of the regulations governing occupational health and safety on board, including activity-specific regulations, such as those governing the use of lifting plant or means of access. The main principle contained in health and safety regulations is that all safety measures should be based on an assessment of the risks involved in a particular task, and the identification of the most effective measures to limit that risk. The main elements of risk assessment are classifying the work activity and information required for that activity, identifying the hazards, determine risk by estimating the potential severity of harm and the likelihood that such harm will occur. When establishing the likelihood of harm with the adequacy of control measures already in place, that risk of harm can be assessed as highly unlikely, unlikely, or likely. Decide if risk is tolerable. This can be achieved by grading risks in a table to estimate risk levels and decide whether such risks are tolerable. The outcome of a risk assessment should be an inventory of actions in priority order to devise, maintain, or improve controls in order of effectiveness. If possible, eliminate hazards altogether. If elimination is not possible, try to reduce the risk. Where possible, adapt work to the individual. Take advantage of technical progress to improve control. Ensure emergency arrangements are in place. Adopt personal protective equipment only as a last resort, after all other control options have been considered. Any action plan should be reviewed before implementation. All new personnel should be informed of their employer's duties in respect of health and safety. Employers are required to ensure the health and safety of workers and other persons so far as possible by the application of certain principles, including the evaluation of unavoidable risks and the taking of action. Specifically, employers are required to make a suitable and sufficient assessment of the risks to health and safety of workers arising in the normal course of their activities or duties. Every employee on board ship is required to inform the company of any relevant risks to health and safety arising from the conduct of their business. Employers must review this assessment when there is reason to believe that it is no longer valid, and workers must be informed of any significant findings of the assessment and measures for their protection, and of any subsequent revisions made. The company is also required to ensure that anyone working on the ship, whether or not they are directly employed by the company, is aware of the findings of the company's risk assessment and of the measures taken for their protection. Health and safety is not new. However, what is new is requirements for employers to adopt the risk assessment approach to occupational health and safety. This means that all work activities should be considered from a risk assessment standpoint. It is particularly important that you follow any training, oral or written instructions that are given, and know to whom you report any deficiencies in equipment or unsafe practices that you notice. You should find out who to consult on health and safety matters on board, who your safety representative is, and crew members should be encouraged to contribute ideas to improve safety. Your ideas are valued.